Every day, millions of honeybees leave their colonies in search of food. But inside the hive, another extraordinary mission is taking place.
While foragers collect nectar and pollen, thousands of workers are building something far more remarkable than it first appears.
They are constructing a home, a nursery, a food warehouse, and a fortress, all inside one living architectural masterpiece.
To understand how a perfect hive begins, we must first enter the darkness. Here, a colony has found a potential home. Before construction begins, the colony must establish a place where the next generation can survive.
Every worker seems to have a task. Some inspect the walls. Others clean the space.
A clean environment is essential. The future nursery must be protected from contamination. Bees constantly groom themselves and each other, maintaining the cleanliness of the colony. At the center of the colony is the queen, the mother of the hive. Workers constantly monitor her presence, receiving chemical signals that help coordinate the entire colony. The hive is not controlled by a single mind. It functions as a superorganism. Each individual follows simple rules. Together, those rules create astonishing complexity. And their greatest construction project is about to begin. The foundation of the perfect hive begins with wax. Worker bees produce beeswax using specialized glands on the underside of their abdomens. The wax emerges as tiny, translucent scales, almost invisible to the human eye. The bee then removes, chews, and softens the wax before placing it into the growing structure. And their greatest construction project is about to begin. At first, the structure appears simple. But the colony is already following a remarkable architectural logic. Every tiny adjustment changes the final geometry. Instead of drawing a blueprint, the bees build through local decisions. Each bee responds to the shape around it. Slowly, the first cells begin to emerge. The iconic hexagon is not created all at once. It emerges gradually as thousands of tiny decisions accumulate. And from apparent chaos, order begins to appear. The colony has begun building one of nature's most efficient structures. But why hexagons? Hexagonal cells allow bees to pack storage space efficiently. Each cell shares walls with its neighbors, reducing wasted space. The result is a structure capable of storing food, raising young, and organizing the colony. Before a cell can be used, it must be prepared. Workers inspect the walls with their antennae, constantly checking the condition of the comb. Every cell is part of a larger living system. As the colony grows, the comb expands. Over time, Repeated use changes the color and texture of the wax. The comb becomes a historical record of the colony. Now, the architecture is ready for its most important purpose: raising the next generation. She moves across the comb, surrounded by her attendants. Then she deposits a single egg. A new life has begun. And the perfect hive becomes a nursery. Inside the nursery, specialized worker bees care for developing larvae. The egg hatches into a small, helpless larva. Nurse bees provide carefully prepared food. Each cell becomes a private chamber for a developing bee. Workers constantly inspect the brood, maintaining the health of the colony. The hive is now becoming a biological machine. Workers also help regulate the temperature inside the hive. By moving their wings, they create air currents through the colony. During colder periods, bees gather tightly around developing brood. The colony constantly responds to the environment. Outside, foragers return with the resources needed to sustain the growing population. Pollen provides essential nutrients for developing young bees. Inside, workers process and distribute food throughout the colony. Some cells are transformed into long-term food storage. The hive is no longer an empty cavity. It is becoming a complete living city. Every drop of honey begins with a flower. A forager collects liquid nectar and stores it inside a specialized honey stomach. The precious cargo is carried back to the colony. Inside the hive, another worker takes over. Through a remarkable exchange, nectar moves from one bee to another. The nectar is placed inside the honeycomb. Workers fan their wings, helping remove excess water. Slowly, the watery nectar becomes concentrated. The result is one of nature's most remarkable long-term foods: honey. When the honey is ready, workers seal the cell with wax. Each sealed cell becomes a preserved food reserve. Together, thousands of cells create a food warehouse capable of supporting the colony through difficult times. Every section has a purpose. Nothing is random. The colony continuously adapts its architecture to its needs. The hive is becoming a perfectly organized ecosystem. But building a perfect hive requires more than wax. It requires communication. One of the most famous examples is the waggle dance. Through movement, a forager can communicate information about the location of food. Nearby bees receive the information through their senses. Then they leave the hive and search for the resources the colony needs. The hive behaves like a single organism with thousands of moving parts. Some build, some feed, some clean, some defend. At the entrance, guard bees inspect visitors. They protect the colony from potential threats. Because a perfect hive is also a valuable target. The colony responds as one. Defense is another part of the architecture of survival. While some bees defend the entrance, others continue building. They protect the colony from potential threats. The perfect hive is always unfinished. Look closely, and the architecture becomes extraordinary. Thousands of individual cells connect into one continuous structure. At the entrance, guard bees inspect visitors. Between these structures, bees create pathways for movement. Food moves through the colony, like supplies through a living city. Nurseries and food stores occupy different parts of the comb. Food reserves are carefully stored for future use. When damage occurs, workers repair the structure. Nothing valuable is simply abandoned. New construction becomes part of the existing architecture. Day after day, the colony expands its living structure. From a few flakes of wax, an entire city has emerged. At its center, the colony continues its endless cycle. Construction, reproduction, storage, defense, and survival, all connected by wax. To understand the hive, we must stop thinking about individual bees. One bee is remarkable. A colony is something entirely different. Construction is distributed among thousands of workers. Foraging is distributed among thousands more. Childcare is shared across the colony. Defense is shared as well. Temperature control is a collective responsibility. The queen provides continuity, but the colony itself keeps everything functioning. No single bee understands the entire system. Yet together, their local decisions create global order. This is one of nature's greatest examples of emergent intelligence. Order without a blueprint. The queen provides continuity, but the colony itself keeps everything functioning.
An entire civilization built from millions of small actions. And every day, the work begins again.
So, how do honeybees build the perfect hive?
They begin with simple materials.
They shape those materials through repeated local decisions. Those decisions produce one of nature's most efficient patterns. The structure stores food. It protects the next generation. It protects the colony.
It regulates temperature and airflow. At the heart of everything is cooperation.
Not cooperation directed by a single leader. But cooperation emerging from thousands of independent lives. The perfection of the hive does not come from perfection in any single bee. It comes from the countless contributions of the entire colony. Together, they create a home that is constantly changing, constantly adapting, and always alive. But the story of the hive does not end here. At the end of the day, foragers return home. The colony settles into the rhythm of another night. Inside the nursery, the next generation continues to grow. New workers emerge and take their first steps into the colony. At first, their world is small. But soon, each bee will find its place.
And every day, the work begins again.
Some will build. Some will fly beyond the hive. And every journey will bring resources back to the colony. Then the cycle begins again.
Egg becomes larva, larva becomes bee, bee becomes builder, guardian, nurse, and forager.
And together, generation after generation, they continue building one of nature's most extraordinary homes.
First, a perfect hive is not built in a day. It is built by countless bees, each performing a small task, each contributing